Saigon is totally defended by South Vietnamese forces.
These paratroopers of the 82nd Airborne Division were the last Americans defending the all-important capital city of Saigon. When the last contingent pulled out last month, it left the defense of Saigon entirely in the hands of South Vietnamese forces. The government's troops now occupy all former U.S. positions, including its artillery sites. They have even built new ones using equipment left behind by the Americans. These are mostly night firing positions used to retaliate against rocket attacks on Saigon. The South Vietnamese have three main defense forces around Saigon: the airborne, the Rangers, and the Marines. Most of the soldiers here have their families with them, a practice peculiar to the South Vietnamese Army. The reasoning is simple. If the troops have their families, they will fight more aggressively. All of the defending forces are in constant patrol, harassing the enemy, keeping him off balance, not permitting him to mass in large numbers. This is the key to preventing another communist attack on Saigon. As one American advisor noted, the South Vietnamese know that if the capital falls, the government falls. That's why President Thieu has entrusted the city's defense to what he considers to be his elite troops. During the massive Tet Offensive of 1968, the loss of life and property was staggering. It has only been within the last 8 months that the civilians have been persuaded to return and begin rebuilding their homes. They have been assured that South Vietnamese forces who surround the city are strong enough to defend them from another communist offensive. Jim Bennett, NBC News, outside Saigon.
There was a small demonstration in Saigon tonight calling upon both sides to stop the fighting. The demonstrators included a few Americans, several of them American soldiers. The Americans dispersed when a colonel announced over a bullhorn that they had 60 seconds to give it up. David?
The Pentagon panel investigating the multiple killings at My Lai will send a group there to inspect the place where it happened and to see what they can learn. In the meantime, closed hearings with various witnesses will continue in Washington. On Friday, Vice President Agnew leaves on a 37,000-mile trip to Asia and the South Pacific, and he said today South Vietnam was not on his schedule, but he certainly would try to go there. Today, he and the President had a short press conference at the White House.
He will be swinging out across the Pacific, stopping at Guam, going first to the Philippines, then to the Republic of China, to Thailand, Nepal, Afghanistan, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Australia, New Zealand, and then back to the United States. The Vice President will be taking messages to each of the heads of state and heads of government from me to them. He will be prepared to discuss bilateral matters between the United States and the various governments involved, and he also will be prepared to talk to the leaders there with regard to the Nixon Doctrine, which I announced on my trip to Asia at Guam. In addition to that, I have asked him particularly to emphasize in his talks with Asian leaders the desire of the United States to develop programs, economic programs and other programs for Asian development after Vietnam. It's a 3-week trip. He will be returning in time for the beginning of the next session, and I wish him very well, and I only wish that I could go along with him because I have some very pleasant memories of those countries that I visited. So we wish you a good trip and a safe return.
Thank you, Mr. President.
We might need that one vote margin in the Senate to get back in time.
Agnew will take along with him 10 pieces of the moon, 10 pieces of the moon, as gifts for the leaders of the nations he will visit, a gift only the U.S. government can give.
The Huntley-Brinkley Report is produced by NBC News and brought to you in color by Geritol, that changes iron-poor blood into iron-rich blood.
Would you believe
I found out I have iron-poor blood.
I know. I'm your iron-poor blood. Take Geritol. Geritol changes iron-poor blood into iron-rich blood.
Geritol iron enters your bloodstream fast, carrying its blood-building iron throughout your body. Just 2 Geritol tablets contain twice the iron in a pound of calf's liver.
Look, Geritol changed me from iron-poor blood to iron-rich blood.
Geritol carries blood-building iron throughout your body.
Try it.
Dr. Jean Mayer, a consultant to the president, says the Nixon administration has done more to eliminate hunger in America than any other administration. Earlier this month, there was a White House conference on food, nutrition, and health, and Mayer gave its recommendations to the president today. And he said the Nixon administration has already expanded the school lunch program, the food stamp program, and money for families too poor even to buy the stamps. In all, he said, the record on that score was good. Jet?
Yasser Arafat, the Arab guerrilla leader, said today that the summit conference in Rabat, Morocco, had brought gains for his movement. He said he had expected nothing, so that everything he got was a victory, but he didn't say what he got, and there is no evidence he was promised much of anything. The meeting left nothing in its wake but bitterness and the customary division among the Arab countries. All of them hate Israel, but none of them could agree on what to do about it.
Representatives from Syria, Iraq, and South Yemen did not even attend the final session. For the first time in 5 Arab summit meetings, there was not even enough agreement for a final communique. The walkout states, all socialists, said the conference did not commit Arab states to an armed struggle to regain Palestine. The conference did talk about preparation for an eventual war with Israel, but did not rule out a possible political solution. The Arab summit emphasized the 2 diverse political camps in the Arab world, the countries which want to fight Israel immediately and want more money to prepare, and those which do not rule out a political solution and don't want to give up more of their oil money for preparation. The commando positions under the leadership of Yasser Arafat were promised more arms and money, but did not get the $75 million they were asking for. Egypt's President Nasser called for the summit to work out a military command under Egyptian control. Nasser did not get that. Some Arab delegates said in private the summit had failed to do anything. Commando spokesman said in private, for them, the summit was a disaster. Wilson Hall, NBC News, Rabat.
10,000 pilgrims came to Bethlehem today to celebrate the birth of Christ. The town is in occupied Jordan, and Israeli forces kept a close watch for Arab guerrillas who had warned that visitors were not immune to attack. Biafra is mainly a Christian country, and today the Biafran government decreed that because Nigeria has resumed its offensive, there will be no Christmas holidays for civil servants. Nevertheless, wherever they could, people prepared to celebrate Christmas in Biafra.
The Catholic Relief Center at Umuchu is a good deal like other such places in Biafra. 1,000 children, some with their mothers, some without, are sheltered at the center. Another 3,000 appear daily from the surrounding countryside for whatever food is available. Usually there is not nearly enough. A quarter of a cup of milk and a handful of cornmeal. What makes Umuchu different is its decision to make this a memorable Christmas. The inhabitants of the Umuchu Center began preparing for Christmas 2 weeks before. Choirs faced their choir masters and began practicing carols in Igbo, the Biafran national language. The local dance troupe's contribution was to be more traditionally Biafran. There will be no exchange of gifts. There will be little to eat and possibly even nothing to eat. But one thing is certain, that on the 25th day of December, Christmas will come to Umuchu. Blaine Littell, NBC News, at the Catholic Relief Center in Umuchu, Biafra.
If
If you use a dandruff shampoo on Tuesday, but dandruff's back on Thursday, maybe what you've got isn't ordinary dandruff. Ask your doctor. Flaking and itching could be early signs of psoriasis, eczema, seborrhea. Tegrin medicated shampoo has an invisible medicated barrier that fights bacteria for days, plus a medication that helps control flaking and itching with just regular use. Try Tegrin medicated shampoo.
I wear dentures, but I smoke cigarettes all day. Who needs tobacco stains on dentures? I use Polident powder. It's quick, so I just don't fool around with other brands anymore.
People keep coming back to Polident because no tablet, powder, or paste gives them the cleaning satisfaction of Polident. No wonder dentists surveyed recommend Polident over all other leading brands combined. No wonder denture wearers keep coming back to Polident.
President Nixon signed a bill today which would let him invoke credit controls, but it was plain the president hadn't much taste for it. In signing the bill, he said the imposition of such restraints could lead to a controlled economy, and he doesn't want that, so the chances are he will never use the power. The New York Stock Exchange took an upward turn today after 2 bad days. The Dow Jones Industrials gained 10 1/3 points, and the value of an average share of common stock gained 48 cents. Market analysts said today's gain could be the beginning of the regular year-end rally. David?
And today's market price quotations on frankincense and myrrh, neither of which is included in the Dow Jones Industrials. Prices are stable despite the turbulence in the Middle East and North Africa where they come from. Frankincense on the open market is 35 cents a pound and myrrh 75. In a Los Angeles court today, Charles Manson, charged in the murder of Sharon Tate and 6 others, told the judge he did not want a lawyer to plead his case, that he wanted to plead his own. The judge spent an hour trying to talk him out of it, but failed, and finally he agreed to let Manson, when he is tried, represent himself.
McMecken, West Virginia, is one of the many little mill and mining towns that cling to hills along the Ohio River. Most people here don't remember Charles Manson, but this was the closest thing he had to a hometown when he was growing up. He lived with an aunt and uncle in this house. Manson never knew his father. His mother was a prostitute who spent time in prison. School records in McMecken show Manson was an average student in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grades. Then he went to live again with his mother, who was still a prostitute. In this neighborhood in Indianapolis, he had his first brush with the law for stealing a bicycle and then a car. He was 14. Manson's mother deserted him. At the urging of a Catholic priest, he was sent to Boys Town, where he lasted 3 days before stealing a car and burglarizing a supermarket. He was sent to the Indiana Boys School, the state reform school. He wouldn't conform to the rules and was moved from one dormitory to another. Manson compiled 28 bad conduct reports in 2 years. At one point, he was barred from Catholic church services. Then he complained he was being discriminated against. His IQ was rated then at 104, but he failed the 8th grade. That was the last of his formal schooling.
He was, as I described perhaps 20 years ago, a chronic discipline problem even at that time. He was a very average student, very poor quality work. He showed very little, if any, interest in school work.
How was he regarded by the other boys?
The other students seemed to regard him as a boy they liked to mingle with. Manson seemed to have a lot of stories to tell that was of interest to the other boys.
The file on Manson at the reform school shows he escaped 5 times. There are letters there from his aunt and grandmother in which they write of their love for him and their hopes that he would do better. There are also postcards written by Manson to schoolmates while he was free on his last escape. He urged them to stay in and then get out the right way.
When Manson was 16, his character and personality were evaluated by teachers here. The consensus was he was self-centered, generally lazy, cooperated only under pressure, and had little influence on other people for either good or bad.
Manson, at age 16, was placed in a federal reform school. He stayed there until he was 20. When he was released, he went back to McMecken, worked at a few odd jobs, and a few months later he was married here to a 17-year-old girl. They moved into a house across the street. Manson's wife had a baby, but before it was born, he was in trouble with the law again, arrested for driving a stolen car to California. That was in 1955. For the next 12 years, it was one prison after another, for auto theft, forgery, white slavery. In his last years in prison, Manson began studying offbeat religions. He read books on influencing people, and he took an interest in music. In March of 1967, he was released on parole and moved into San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury, where nobody cared about his prison record, girls were his for the taking, and where an ex-con could pose as a musician and get lost in the hippie crowd. He lived here for a time, 636 Cole Street, where the group that was known later as Manson's family began to gather around him. His admirers were numerous. One of them, who did not want his face shown, talked about the hold that Manson had on his followers.
He'd been out of jail for approximately a year at that time and had a school bus, big black school bus. He had a couple of cars. He had, at least a dozen girls around him. He had a number of guys. Had influential friends, some of whose names have already come out, some of whom haven't. And he, just had a way with people that seemed to show, what he was saying was right. He was, a very charismatic individual. I guess some people have called it magnetic, and some people say that they were hypnotized. But he was just a very, very charismatic individual.
That was more than a year ago. The family had moved from Northern California to the Spawn Movie Ranch near Los Angeles, living off garbage, sleeping on floors, and playing the roles of...
What a good time for a cat.
The Air Force chose the McDonnell Douglas Corporation to build its new fighter plane, the F-15. The estimated price for each plane will be about $13.5 million, making it the most expensive fighter ever built. The Secretary of the Air Force said today the F-15 would be the most advanced fighter of any country in the world over the years beginning in 1975. Chet?
The Justice Department said yesterday that it's going to be tougher from now on for federal prisoners to get paroles. And it said the reason is the high rate of parole violations, men returning to crime. The trouble is that the country's prisons, state and local as well as federal, are too old and too crowded to permit much rehabilitation. More than half the men who serve the time wind up in prison again. But there are hopeful signs, and one is a program being tried in Washington State.
This is Robert Trishler of Seattle. He is a convicted burglar. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison for his very first burglary.
This is fine, but now, how can they possibly think that I'm going to make it in society when I get out of here, when I don't know? I haven't been around society for 2 years now. I don't know what it's going to be like walking back out to all those people. I don't know if I'm going to want to work or what. I mean, the main question right here, are you going to come back? Well, who can answer that question? With the parole rules that they got and the little rules they put on your parole, who knows who's coming back? This is the best prison I've ever heard of. It's slack around here. Detention isn't built up. There's quite a few first-timers. You can be pretty well friends with a lot of these people in here. But compared to a lot of these other prisons, this is like, I guess it's kind of like a paradise, compared to some of these prisons. But it's still, you're locked up. You're still now out there doing what you want to do. You're still in prison. And you know it. You realize it every night when you look out your window. You know it.
Ladies, would you bring that cloth over here, please? The annual Women's Club barbecue is over, and the stains put on this tablecloth are a day old. This looks like chocolate cream pie.
Homemade, but it stains.
And this?
Some of Alice's barbecue sauce.
And that's beef blood.
And dried in, too.
All these set in stains. A problem for conventional detergents, but not for the unbelievable detergent. New Gain with microenzyme action from Procter & Gamble. Gain works better on even these locked-in stains.
By itself? How's it work?
You see, stains are locked into fabric fibers. But Gain's enzymes act like little keys to unlock those stains biologically. Free them from the fabric.
And you didn't add a thing.
Look, chocolate cream pie gone.
Unbelievable.
Barbecue sauce gone. Blood stain gone.
Unbelievable.
Everything's unbelievably clean with the unbelievable detergent. Gain with microenzyme action. Gain treats stains like dirt.
A young man claimed his religion allowed him to avoid the draft, and he considered the Vietnam War to be unjust. Today, a San Francisco judge ruled that that was enough to prevent his induction. H. Ross Perot, who is trying to fly 2 plane loads of Christmas gifts and supplies for American prisoners of war into Hanoi, said today in Bangkok that he had talked with the North Vietnamese in Laos and that the meeting had been productive, and that was all he would say. The French police said today they will allow 150 wives and children of American prisoners to demonstrate tomorrow, Christmas Day, outside the headquarters of the Hanoi delegation to the Paris peace talks. David?
Mrs. David Ford's husband is a captain in the Air Force. In 1967, his plane went down in flames over North Vietnam. Nobody saw him or his parachute, and for 2 years she has not known whether he was dead or alive. Then she got word a letter from him was on the way, and reporter Mike Boyd of KCRA in Sacramento, California, was there when the letter arrived.
It has a Vietnam stamp on it, and it's, yes, that's my husband's writing. Yes, it's from my husband. It is. It really is. I don't know whether I want to be very careful in opening this because I don't want to spoil anything on there.
They must have put it in another envelope.
Yes, they put it, this is one of those sort of a sealed type mailer things. Yes, it said, I am in good health and spirits. How are the children and you? Send my glasses and pictures. Did Julie marry that guy from Eagle Tree, or is she still in school? How are the children doing in school? I hope you are all in good health. I love you all very much and hope to see you soon. It was dated November 26, 1969. I can't tell you.
It's just wonderful.
I don't know.
Really is wonderful.
I don't know whether apparently he's never got one of my letters because my daughter's been married for quite a while now, and apparently he's never got any of my letters. But I'm so glad that he's alive and well. Of course, I always had faith that he was alive. I always have it, and we've prayed very hard and worked very hard in the National League of Families, and I'm not going to quit working. I'm not going to quit working until our men are released, or at least can write to their families and hear from them, and until I hear about all the men, not only the men in North Vietnam, but the men in Laos and the men in South Vietnam. I will keep working.
You kids look pretty happy, too.
Oh, I'm sure they are. We've missed our daddy.
A happy Christmas to everybody, and to Chet, a good night.
Good night, David, and Merry Christmas from NBC News.